We've been talking about present time, meaning simple present tense and present progressive tense. But now we're going to talk about a specific case. That is present time with non-action verbs. So in present time, like I said, you usually have two choices. The simple present tense, when you're talking about habits and facts. For example, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. You also have the present progressive tense for actions that are happening right now. For example, the water is boiling on the stove. But some verbs are not actions. So, you remember, we said present progressive tense is for actions happening now. But what happens when you don't have an action? Present progressive is for actions happening right now. If the verb is not really an action, you can't use the present progressive. So what kinds of verbs are not actions? Let's look at a few examples. I know the answer. So the verb here is know. Can you really say that knowing is an action? An action means you're doing something, right? But when you say, I know the answer, you're not doing anything. So that's not an action. Another example, I have a dog. So we're talking about right now, I have a dog, but I'm going to use this simple present tense here because have is not really an action either, right? I'm not doing anything. I just have a dog. So the verb have is also not an action. And one more example, I want some water. Again, want is not really an action. I'm not doing anything, right? These sentences are talking about right now, but I don't use the present progressive. What verb tense am I using here? The simple present. So how do you remember what's a non-action verb? There's 5 main categories or groupings of non-action verbs. These are the verbs you need to remember for class. They're also on page 17 in your book. So the first non-action verb category is the be verbs. So is, am, and are. Those are never action verbs. Second, ownership verbs. Ownership means something belongs to you. So these are the verbs have and belong to. The next category is opinion. So all of these verbs give an opinion. Believe, think, like, hate, love, prefer, agree, and disagree. The fourth category is knowledge. So these are verbs like know, understand, mean, remember, and forget. And the last category is the senses. Hear, see, sound, seem, look, or look like. For non-action verbs in present time, we will use the simple present tense. Another way to say that is non-action, no ing. Non-action, no ing. So let's practice a little bit with the categories. So let's start with ownership. So here is the verb have. When we use the verb have, we don't have to think, is it happening right now or is it a fact? We know that have is a non-action verb, so our only choice is simple present. I have a new phone. The new phone blank to me. The verb belong. Will I put ing? No. We won't put ing on belong because it's a non-action verb. So my only choice is the new phone belongs to me. Simple present. And don't forget that S because phone is singular, and so the singular verb has an S. The phone blank now. Ring. Is ring a non-action verb? No. So ring we can use with ing or without. So we have to think, is this happening now or is this a habit? This is happening now. So we will use the present progressive. The phone is ringing now. All right. Now, let's practice with opinions, the next category. I blank the color green. So the verb is like. Like is a non-action verb. So we don't have to think ing or no ing. We know. No ing. I like the color green. But I blank the color blue is better. So, I think the color blue is better. Because the verb think is about your opinion, right? And we know that's a non-action verb. So we'll use the simple present. Here we have to fill in two verbs. We have prefer and we have paint. So, in the first case, prefer is a non-action verb. So we will use simple present. What about the verb paint? Well, paint is doing something, right? That's an action verb. So we have to decide, are we talking about right now? In this case, yes, we are. So, I prefer blue, so I am painting my house blue. Let's practice with the knowledge category. To know something. So a girl blank across the playground right now. I see those words right now. What about run? Is that an action verb or a non-action verb? It's action. So we can use ing. The girl is running across the playground right now. I blank her name, but I blank it. So the first one's going to be no, and the second one will be remember but negative. Okay? So know, is that an action verb? It is not. How about remember? That is also a non-action verb. So both of these will be simple present. I know her name, but I don't remember it. Let's practice with the senses now. The things you see, hear, smell, taste. This one, seem, always non-action. So we have he. We will use simple present with the S. He seems upset right now. Cry. Well, cry is an action, right? So, are we talking about right now or as a habit or a fact? Well, it's weird to think of crying as a habit, right? I don't think anyone cries as a habit. So, we'll say it's right now. He is crying. His voice shaky. So, shaky voice. And his eyes red. So we're going to use sound and look. Well, these are non-action verbs. So we know we have to use simple present. His voice sounds shaky and his eyes look red. So voice is singular, so we have sounds. And then eyes are plural, so we have look with no S. Of course, in English, one word can have two meanings. So that means some verbs are a little confusing. Some verbs have an action meaning and a non-action meaning. So you have to think about the meaning of the word in the sentence. For example, the verb have is like that. So usually when we talk about have, we're talking about ownership. I have a phone, for example. But there is another meaning of have. It means to experience something. So I am having a good time. It's not the same meaning, right? You could say I'm having a good time, I'm having a bad time, I'm having a good day. When you're talking about an experience that you're having right now, go ahead and use present progressive. Another verb that's a little bit different is the verb think. So sometimes, usually, when we use the word think, we give an opinion. I think you are nice, right? My opinion is that you are nice. But it's also possible to have an action meaning for think. When you're using your brain is working. So I'm thinking about the math problem. In this case, you can use present progressive because this is an action. Your brain is working. It's not just an opinion. So when you're trying to decide what verb to use, and you're talking about present time, your first question should be, is it an action verb? If the answer is no, use the simple present. You don't need to think about anything else. If the answer is yes, then think about, is it happening now, or is it a fact or a habit? If it's happening now, use the simple present, use the present progressive. If it's a fact or a habit, use the simple present. So I hope that makes you more successful using the present time with non-action verbs. Good luck.